Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining our session. And thank you especially to our panelists, Ghassan Chemali, Rizvi, Hassan, and Fatmi, Khawja. And today's session is about projects that take the view of incremental change and take the time to develop in collaboration with the local community. They're reflective. They realize that you can't rush everything in 1 or 2 years. And they grow and learn as they go along. And so we actually have 2 presentations. Ghassan is going to start and he's going to talk about Muharraq in Bahrain. And then the second presentation will be Rizvi and Fatmi together, who will talk about a project in Bangladesh, which they have been working on, building a place for refugees from Myanmar to live and to work and to be creative. So, Ghassan, we'd love to hear what you have to say. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Saif, and thank you for having me. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about the revitalization of Muharraq, which is what we can call a heritage-led development. I don't know if you are familiar with Bahrain. It's a small island country in the middle of the Gulf region. And historically, it was on the route of commercial routes between India and the Middle East. And the urban development in Bahrain was always, seasonal, or it was sometimes a city grows and then disappears and reappears again. And until the end of the 19th century, where there was significant urban sprawl due to the pearling economy and its the spreading of the pearling economy in the region and the importance it had worldwide, but also in the Gulf region. And this is where we had this stone architecture appear and these urban centers, mainly Muharraq and Manama. And the subject of our project is, of course, Muharraq. So the vernacular architecture that developed there was based on coral stone and using mangrove poles coming from several sources in India and Africa. And concrete started being used in the 30s, but there was still a following of the traditional construction modes, I would say, until the 50s and 60s. The Muharraq is an island, actually, and was an island, I would say, because today it's mostly connected to the bigger island of Bahrain. But it used to be separated from the main island and relied mostly on a sea use economy, meaning pearling and also commerce. And it was the center of rule. It was where the Sheikh's Khalifa from the Khalifa family established their palaces and from where they ruled. So, as you can see, the western seashore of Muharraq was composed of these comb-like shaped coast, where every property there, every little commercial port was extending through incremental reclamation of the sea, and it created this sort of informal port on the western side of the town. And the market area was centralized there, and from there you could actually access the rest of the city and the middle of the city where the rulers were and where the center of rule and the main mosques was. So the type of fabric that was there is a mostly residential, apart from the souk area, and it's these courtyard houses that are typical from houses in the region and Islamic region, but also the regions of North India and North Africa, with their semi-private quality and this system of alleyways and hierarchy of alleyways and wider roads. And the way the city grew was through incremental addition of these farij, what we call farij. A farij is a neighborhood. Basically, it was a tribe or a family or a profession establishing a neighborhood and growing around building houses as new generation came along, building and growing around a nucleus of the earlier house and the first mosque of the family or the neighborhood. And this is how the city grew and became bigger and became about. And this is a mapping of the Farij done in 2006 by Yarwood. And this is a photo of a typical majlis. A majlis, as I said, is part of the nucleus of the Farij, along with the mosque and the family house. And it's a place where the neighborhood people meet or the family members meet on a weekly basis to discuss how to manage things and how to govern. So it's a type of governance that is still existing today. I will talk a bit more about that, in parallel with the normal system of government. So from the 60s onwards, this is where a big break happened. This is where bigger changes happened. The dying pearling economy, of course, started ending from the 1930s up to the 1960s. And in the 1960s, the economy died completely due to changes in the economical system, the fact that there was a cultured pearl coming from Japan, the fact there was an economical crisis in the 1920s, and the appearance of oil in the region. All these factors led to the death of the pearling economy and the abandonment and the loss of the economical role that Muharraq had at the time. Also, the influential families who used to live in Muharraq started leaving progressively and progressively replaced by new immigrants and also migrant laborers coming from several countries to work in Bahrain. And the reason why they were coming to Muharraq is because it was cheaper to establish themselves there. And as you can see on the map, I didn't mention that there was massive reclamations around Muharraq, which also added into the loss of the role of Muharraq and its relationship with the sea. These are important maps that show the transformation of the fabric from the 1930s to 2011. And as places were abandoned, they were decaying. There was a lot of demolitions. The government itself was demolishing sometimes because these buildings were seen as dangerous. So this stone architecture, this vernacular architecture was also being lost. And we see in 2011, we have a fabric that's full of gaps and open spaces. On the other hand, there's also new architecture that comes along, new buildings, concrete buildings that sometimes replace the older buildings. So we end up with a mixture of fabrics of new, old, and open spaces. But there is a lot of remaining aspects. There's a lot of aspects that are of cultural value that remained in Muharraq and that we wanted to build on, or the Ministry of Culture at the time wanted to build on. And one of them is, of course, the remaining original street pattern. There was no massive street widening happening in Muharraq, despite the abandonment, despite the changes and the new construction. Most of the original street pattern remained, and this was seen as an opportunity to create an alternative living space where the human scale is important, and where the relationship between neighbors is more, I would say, has more impact or easier, and human relations are more significant. Also, there's a sizable part of the original population that remained there. Of course, they keep wanting to move out now because it's becoming very impractical to live in Muharraq. But there's, up until now, there's maybe at least 50% of the local population that's still there. There was also a lot of remaining intangible traditions, such as the folk music, which is practiced by people living in Muharraq to some extent. And there's a lot of remaining houses of high heritage value that express that identity and culture of the city. So from 2002 onwards, this is where the start of urban conservation initiatives happened, mainly through incremental projects, taking opportunities as they come to restore old houses, develop a certain area, encourage some people to stay in the city, and through different small systems of policies and actions. And it's all started with the Sheikh Ibrahim Center, led by Sheikh Hamay bin Mohammed Al Khalifa. She actually was the one who started doing significant action to bring about this change and this regeneration. She started the Sheikh Ibrahim Center, which used to be the house of her grandfather, and she developed it into a cultural center. And her action was to involve the private sector as much as possible in this and get funding from the private sector and find partnerships. And she managed to restore around 25 houses and to create a cultural sector in Muharraq with paved streets and small also public spaces. We will see them later. I'm just showing here two examples of the Sheikh Ibrahim Center houses. One house is for the children. It's a children library. It's for the children of the neighborhood to come and read and encourage this activity of reading. Another one is centered around the Kurar activity, or the Kurar tradition, which is the tradition of weaving a golden thread into abayas and local garment. And this is a major contribution to, introducing culture or keeping the culture of Muharraq intact. In between 2002 and 2012, there was also several action. Sheikh Hamay kept pushing, and she became Minister of Culture, actually, at some point in 2009. And in 2012, she managed to inscribe 16 historic houses in Muharraq as World Heritage Sites. 16 historic houses connected by a pathway called the Purling Pathway. So this gave further impetus and actually the crystallization, if you want, of Muharraq as an old town that deserves to be revitalized and deserves to be regenerated. This is currently still being done by the Bahrain Authority of Culture and Antiquities, in which I am working. So I'm just going through the 5 types of action that were taken and that are significant for the preservation of Muharraq and the preservation of its character. Of course, one of them, as I mentioned, is the original street pattern to be conserved. This is done by constantly monitoring all development projects that are taking place there. And we're enhancing accessibility through the development of parking and open parking spaces. I'll talk about them later with authorities. And we've done a couple of studies, wholesome studies of the whole city, to also try to identify what kind of parking policies we can have to better the accessibility and what kind of pedestrianization can be done all over the city. Another initiative is the preservation of what is remaining of the historic fabric. This is also taken place by a permit system that we coordinate with the municipality to make sure no significant demolition of the historic fabric is taking place. And one of important action also is creating this pedestrian bridge with the southern most site of the Purling Pathway, and it created a link. It linked back the city to its seashore, and that link, as I mentioned, was lost when the reclamation happened. But the most important aspect that I'm going to talk about today for our presentation, of course, is the restoration and adaptation of historic buildings. For one, of course, there's the 16 buildings inscribed as World Heritage Places, but there's also other projects, new architecture and other historic properties that were restored in the process. I will talk about them a bit later. And this also is the most significant aspect of of the development is the how open spaces, the gaps that I talked about earlier, those gaps that were left by the demolitions and the decay of the city, that are taken as an opportunity to redevelop open spaces and to redevelop services for the community. On the left, you can see one of the public spaces that we did, and on the right, one of the parking spaces, and I will talk about this more in detail soon. So this is a map of the Pearling Pathway development projects. Of course, there's around 30 historic properties that were restored and redeveloped. There are the 16 public square spaces that I talked about and the 4 parking structures. But there's also the general upgrade and repair of properties in the area. As I said, we are constantly in the process of upgrading the fabric and protecting valuable fabric from demolition or from falling apart. So I will go now into the detail of those projects. The 4 parking structures, of course, are there to improve the accessibility for both visitors and local residents. So not only for visitors, but also for the local residents. And they also help, of course, pedestrianize the inner streets. And as a policy, 20% of each parking is reserved for the residents right now. And we're looking into an operation company that would take that on board. So we want to make sure that these parkings, which are here to help, of course, visit the city from outside visitors and outside people from outside Muharraq, are there also to serve the community. This is a photo of one of the parking spaces, and this is a model on the left of another one. This one is complete that you see on the right. The other ones are in the way of being completed. We also did a series of shading of existing parking spaces, also to encourage or to support the community in accessibility, in accessing their houses and remaining really in the neighborhoods, because parking is one of the biggest problems. So in this example, for example, we shaded that parking space, and we managed to also restore the old wall that was there by the same occasion, which is also, again, bringing heritage and facilitating, the life of the community at the same time. The public spaces. So here I just put this illustration on the left to show how what the concept of these public spaces is. These public spaces, as I said, are inserted. They are nested in the existing fabric. So they just take the place of demolished buildings, and they remind of how the city was. The city was always made of these voids and solid and void of courtyards and solid spaces. So it takes again this configuration. And what do they offer to the community? Of course, they offer a space of rest and shade, a small oasis in the highly mineral city, as you've seen from other pictures. And they also include a fountain that you can see on the right here, fountains that provide drinkable water. This also is in line with the tradition of providing water, sweet water, to inhabitants of Islamic cities and cities of the region. They also include lighting for users to be there at night and to make it safer and easier to be there. Also, a lot of kids are using these spaces as playgrounds. Some public spaces are designed as playgrounds, but others also are not. And still, you can see that we're providing these open spaces, these spaces where people can play. And on the right, you can see 2 kids swimming. Of course, this public space was made by the Sheikh Ibrahim Center. Its point was not for people to swim in it, but it did provide, it's a source of freshness, refreshment for the kids. So I think it's a great thing. So that's for the public spaces and parking. Regarding the restoration projects, I'm here showing two examples where the partnership with the owners was very important. Again, the objective of the project was to keep the owners and keep the community involved. So when we restored these two houses, we were in close contact with the owners and with the owners of the house, unfortunately, who don't live there anymore, but who still have a stake, who still go there from time to time, who still visit these places. So these are two significant examples. In the case of Fakhru House, also the owners did pay a certain amount for the restoration of the house. So they contributed financially. I'm also showing here how the approach is sensitive enough not to create or lead to relocation or displacement. The idea was not to remove whoever is already there, but to do these chirurgical interventions to, keep who's there, but also create new spaces and bring new people who also would bring a new economical benefits. So this is the redevelopment of Qaisaria Souk. On the left, you have the existing tenants, which shops we repaired and cleaned and repaired from the inside and added lighting and shading and organized the signage. I'll talk about signage in a second. And on the right, on the right, you see a new development, a new building that was made to attract, I would say, a different type of tenants coming from maybe a wealthier strata of the society. But of course, this is in terms of design. And in terms of policies also, there is now a push to keep the rents there low, so people who cannot afford to pay rent don't leave. But this policy, unfortunately, is not. I would say it's not it's not fixed. So it might be subject to change. And I know that, like the municipality or other entities, also institutions, want to increase the rent. They want the space to develop. So there is a danger actually for those communities that exist to leave. But as far as design and our intervention is concerned, we are trying to keep them as much as possible. You can see on the right also one of the shops of the local tenants, and a better view of the new block, the new building below. And one word on the signage is that we allowed also those tenants to choose what kind of signage they want. The only condition was that it should be painted on the wall, but we did not go and drastically tell them what kind of signage they should have or what they should write on their walls. Another example of a new build. This is the Dar is a traditional type of music venue, and it used to be the place where the pearl divers would gather off pearling season to sing and dance their traditional songs. And this building was made recently by also Baka to celebrate this tradition, and it is very much connected to the street. The people sit in the street, as you can see in the middle image, and they can watch the dancers inside. And that gave a great impetus to that tradition of folk dancing. Another point worth mentioning is that we make a lot of use in our restoration project. We make a lot of use of the local craftsmanship. This is, for example, the shop of a carpenter who is specialized in making old doors and any kind of traditional furniture. And he contributed to most of our projects in his work. And we also make use a lot of the manpower existing in Muharraq. So just to go back and to say, because I had the opportunity of doing a bit of research on Muharraq, and I did interview the locals there about their perception of the developments and of the projects. And I found that, well, in Muharraq, as I said, there's locals, let's say natives, let's say Bahrainis native Bahrainis, and there's also immigrants and migrants. And the way these two groups of people perceive the development or the heritage was a bit different. The locals, for example, they saw the development as a source of pride, as something that gives them, pride of their identity and culture, but it did not really encourage them to stay in the old town. Unfortunately, for now, they still perceive Muharraq as a difficult place to live, especially because also they don't feel they have difficulty living with the other community of migrants. Whereas the migrants are the people who mostly use those public spaces at night, because this is the people who live mostly on the streets and who are able to be on the streets, who some of them, most of them maybe don't have families, so they are okay to spend time there, etc. So again, these public spaces are playing a role to help the communities who are there in different ways. Those migrants are using the place. Natives are more proud of the places that are being made, but not really using them. So there is a side of the issues of social cohesion in Muharraq that these projects are not yet attending to, I would say. On a final note, I just wanted to say that now, knowing that we have these issues of social cohesion, etc., and we are trying to go and expanding this integrative, this approach, a sensitive approach that we have to the city by collaborating a lot with urban planning. Recently, we had this proposal coming from the urban planning department, and as you can see, the approach is aggressive in changing what is there in the fabric and going with these nicely designed elements that don't really, I think, offer much to the community. So we are trying to push for a more integrative and consultative approach by telling them we need to consult the community and we need to integrate all the institutions and the municipal council, for example, and other community organizations present. And for example, in one of the sites that you see here, the one in the bottom in the left plan is actually an area where the community has made its own little majlis, and this plot was offered by a wealthy family to the community, and they made this small majlis and they made a little farm. So the community is using this space for themselves, and it would be a pity that a plan like the one of urban planning comes and removes this, but rather we want to encourage the community to take possession of their space and continue developing it itself, and we can help them do that. Thank you. I don't know if I was too long. I'm not sure.
No, it was great. Thank you for this great overview.
So much.
Very useful. I just have one question before we turn on to the second presentation.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's a tension between building contemporary structures in a historic neighborhood. And I mean, it was very interesting to look at the music hall, the music building, which is so contemporary. And I wondered whether for you face these issues as well, or whether the fact that you're a government entity means that you can embrace contemporary architecture easily, and what the public response is to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point of discussion. I mean, to be honest, this project had many visions imbricated in one another. So it started as a heritage project, and then there was another vision on top, which is needed when design was very important, the design element and modern design, as you said. The community, a lot of them are happy. Some of them are critical by saying this is not, this is not a traditional Bahraini architecture. And as you said, you're right. I mean, it's a government entity, and this music venue was on property of the government, so it's government land. So there was no really a say from the other members of community on what type of architecture comes in there. It offers a service, but yes, it doesn't look like the traditional. And I know from experience that people like better what looks traditional, although it has a tendency to be fake and to lead to, amalgaming or mixing between what is actually authentic and what is not. But people, or the majority of the community or people, like to see something that looks familiar, like a wind tower or elements like this. But it's a difficult thing.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on to the second presentation, and then we can reflect and discuss the two projects together and with contributions from the audience. So Rizvi and Fatmi, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Khawja Fatmi, and this is Rizvi Hassan, my colleague. So we will be presenting our project from Rohingya refugee response, Rohingya refugee camp. I hope you all can see this. What we wanted to push here is the fact that how architects can create a presence for a wider spectrum, and how our works can address contexts in different places. The picture you see here is the largest refugee camp in the entire world, and all the community spaces are placed here. Rizvi wants to start.
The thing is, the crisis mainly happened in 2017, and about 1 million Rohingya refugees fled from Myanmar to Bangladesh to seek refuge, as there was a genocide going on that side, and they had to fly here, and they had to cross the Naf River to come here, and there was no shelter, no open space for them to reside in. But we had to, the government of Bangladesh, they had to surrender their the hill tracts and forest land to create a large amount of refugee settlement. And this is the before photograph you see, and this is the after version. You can see the massive change, like within 2 months, and it was like a surreal thing. Like within 2 months, you can see this massive change, and like thousands of wash facilities and shelters are being built by everyone everywhere. And you wouldn't know where you are walking. Is it a road? Is it a human waste, or what it is? So the situation was quite messy at that time. And the great thing about everyone coming together was that like within time, everyone was building like a temporary city for this million people. And we were lucky enough to find ourselves among a large number of people from the community, from different organizations, different stakeholders, and government, of course. And they were very positive, and they were very energetic to push every boundary to respond to the situation. At the beginning, we really didn't have any idea, any clue how we can contribute as architects, but we tried to do everything we can. We tried to do planning, we tried to design shelter, we tried to talk to people, we tried to do Excel sheets, whatever we can do to help in the situation. But whatever we did, what we realized is that if we really want to respond well in the situation, understanding the source problem will be the key. What is causing the problems and how we can act according to the issues. So our projects generally started from 2018, and we are still working on in the camp areas, and We developed many community spaces. We developed shelters, and in many phases, in different phases, we responded differently. But the key issues we observed there was that how this community, what is the identity of the community, and we saw that they had a long history of deprivation back in their country. They had lack of social security. They had lack of education. I must say formal education, and lack of cultural exchange. So as designers, we thought, okay, how can we respond to these issues that we are observing all around? And we try to think very simple, and picked some words that, okay, for against history of deprivation, we should definitely try to create inclusion in an environment, and we should try to create dignity in space, however we can, however is possible, however the government is allowing us. And then security. For the security, we had to create safe space, that in terms of the work environment, in terms of the construction environment, everything, whoever is working with us as craftsmen or labor or as volunteers, they had to feel safe, because a lot of trauma was going on in their background, and we didn't want to trigger those, and we wanted to create a healthy space. And also, what we found out is that this community has, although they had a lack of education, formal education, they had a lot of wisdom and indigenous knowledge, and we thought we want to learn from them as well, and we have to share ours, whatever we know. So sharing wisdom and knowledge, and then for cultural exchange, we wanted to increase contact as much as possible, because back in Arakan, back in Myanmar, they used to reside in a very further corner of the whole country, and their communication was quite restricted. So they probably, as a community, they didn't have much cultural exchange with the rest of the part of the country or other communities. So we thought to break all their conservative ideas, or all their insecurities, or all their traumas, we have to increase contact, and we have to gain trust somehow. So for these goals, architecture has been a very useful tool for us to connect, to build trust, and to be helpful to these people. And we worked on several projects. This is a safe space for women and girls. This is by BRAC, and non-profit organization. They wanted to address the gender-based violence issues for the women and adolescent girls of the community, and wanted to create a safe space. So so you see in this map, the center is situated in a very complicated area. This area is like a mixture of the host communities and the refugee communities. Like you see all the blue, red houses, these are the host communities, and all the white houses are probably shelters for the refugee communities, and they quite are living like together, and many issues are being arised every day. They have conflicts, they have fights, and so on, harassments, and all things. So this center is trying to create a positive environment, and trying to consult them regarding the issues they're facing every day. So what we try to do is we try to create a very basic courtyard that is not visible from outside, and so that females, women and girls, they can come here and feel safe. First of all, they should feel vibrant. They should see the color and joy that is offering the courtyard, and then they should feel safe to share their problems. And as we are saying that we try to increase contact as much as possible. These workshops helped us a lot to do that. We did several workshops during construction, before construction, and post-construction. So this photo is like a post-construction workshop, and these adolescent girls, they had this workshop of having their perception of the space, how they see the space and how it can be improved, and whatever what they want to do in this place. So, for example, one children, she drew a flower, and she said she sees the center like a flower, and that sort of thing. So there was a lot of exchange going on, and just not with the females, but also the male members from the community, because whenever we are dealing with one gender, or we're dealing just with women, the men are probably not allowing their female members of the family to come here, because there is a lot of mistrust growing. But what we try to do is we try to include them during the construction, and we try to create a very healthy environment, a creative process to build the unusual structure. And when they were building this structure, they thought, okay, this is something very nice, and they wanted their female family members to be included in these centers very easily. So there was a lot of trust building going on during our construction, and right now the users are coming here every day. They are making the place joyous. And this place grows on its own in different ways. We don't have any hold on that. We just allow everyone to explore in their own way. This is another project. This is also situated in the Hindu camp, in the refugee camp. This is very adjacent to the host community as well. You see the people using here, they're both host Bangladeshi nationals and Rohingya refugees. So you see the plan here. This blue shade, this one is the center. And these dense houses, this is the camp. Around 1,000 families are residing there. And you see in the left, you see the host community. The Muslim community is residing here, Bangladeshi community. So the first plan was to build this structure inside the refugee camp, inside the camp. But the thing is, when we went there, the trust was not yet built with the refugees, and they didn't want us to be present there. So what we did is we selected a site just adjacent to the camp, and we planned in a way that both the host nationals and refugee nationals can be benefited from it, so that there can be a friendly environment among them as well. So this is the previous, this is an abandoned chicken shed that we found, and we rented this place, and we converted it to the community center in the most minimal way possible at that time. We used a lot of modular techniques to assemble this structure, so that in any case we have to relocate this house, we can do it easily. And right now, again, they are coming here for trainings, just for gossips and leisure times, or they come here for case management or health issues or that sort of things. And we tried to make our construction happening and colorful, because we wanted their touch to be on the ground and on every component of the building. You see a lot of paintings, you see the broken tile patterns on the floor. These were done by the participants during the construction. What was our target was that we just wanted to make an event happening and happy for anyone who is coming to see or to participate. you see some of the photos from the construction. And later, some of the projects we did with the different organizations, and I think Fatmi can tell more about.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So at that point of our practice, we were questioning ourselves if architecture should be a tool to empower us. So this was the target when we were working in these projects. This particular project is in Camp 12. It's in Rohingya refugee camp. It's a display center and tailoring zone, specifically for Rohingya women to showcase their crafts. So this is these are some pictures of the craftsmen during the construction. Since the technical team, the architects, the engineers, the designers, and the craftspeople, the Rohingya people who are going to make these structures happen, did not have a lot of things in common. We could not even speak their language at that time. So we were thinking how to, communicate with them and bring the best of their knowledge and our knowledge in one singular platform. So making models, creating drawings were some techniques how we could learn from their perspective as well. So in these pictures, you can see we were showing the model to the craftspeople, and they were discussing how to build the project. This. And during this project, a lot of the craftspeople, they fell in love with the project so much and the time so much that one of them came to us and said that they want to bless this building by inscribing beautiful words from their language. And without asking much to us, they started doing it. So on the left, you can see the word konjo in their language. It means beautiful. And in the other one, they wrote their name, like painters write their name in their artworks. So this was the center after 62 days of working here, when the architect set their feet at last. This was the last scenario. And after that, when the architect left the scene, this was the community was working with, and they made it incrementally very beautiful. They came up with the design solutions. They came up with landscape details, and the structure that you see in the background was also done by them. Me as an architect did not have much say in this. This is the head craftsperson. So when we were working in other projects, in other buildings in the camp, so one of them came and said that they wanted to make it look different. And he came up with the most intricate structural model I have ever seen in my life. And he said that we can go with these solutions. And it was a very practical solution. So this was the model. And it's a very difficult bamboo structure to solve, but they somehow did that on their own. So this is another workshop that we did with the host community, the Bangladeshi community, who were affected by the influx of the Rohingya refugees. So his name is Harunur Rashid, and he is a person with disability. And we wanted to build a sanitation facility for his house. And he designed the entire house and the homestead and decided where should be the toilet fixed. But the problem is, since we had limited budget and we could not provide both bathing system and latrine system, so we just provided them with the toilet and with discussing them a lot of times and sitting together with them and understanding what sort of materials they would have in their house laying around and what materials we can reuse. We came up with a design, and this is the ultimate design that was built entirely by the owner of this house. And I know architecturally it might not look very marvelous, but this is the solution that this particular context and this particular family needed. And that person needed a technical discussion with an architect, and we were there available to help them. Yeah, so this is another project.
Yeah, so we worked in, we have been working in like different projects like wash blocks, shelters, and community spaces. And slowly we started having our trust with the government, with the stakeholders and the communities. So this is our last project in the camp that we worked on. It's a Rohingya Culture Memory Center. And we are calling the process like healing through making. This was like a 1.5 year long journey with the community members. And the majority of the project was like researching with the community people and trying to learn what they can do best and what they had as their heritage, as their tradition back in Myanmar. Because in the camp, you cannot see much of these things that they used to do. Of course, you can, if you try to look hard enough, you can see a lot of clues are there, but we wanted to make sure that these are their traditions, and they came up with embroideries and like basketries, woodworks, and many beautiful things. And our work was to just to share stories or time with them, and trying to be make them our mentors, so that they can teach us what they have. And we used to arrange design workshops, like design studios. We used to think, however we have studied in our universities, we can replicate that in the camp, but just with the community members. So we used to arrange these classes almost twice a week, and they used to come up with such marvelous things that excited us a lot and inspired us to do more. Pottery and weaving and beautiful patterns drawn by them. These were all we are getting from the craftsmen from the surrounding. So there are 32 camps in the Teknaf area, Ukhia and Teknaf area. We tried to pick individuals from different camps, whoever is known for their drawing or for their handwork or their poetry or singing. We wanted to talk to them and sit with them to know their passion. And you see these beautiful models. These were all made by them. And we didn't really ask for this, but whenever we started a design discussion, they came up with these solutions. Like this is a wall and a window system that can be converted to a furniture like tables. And this really amazed us, because we didn't expect this from such a community. And this is a portfolio of a craftsman. Yeah,
Mr.
Zaber, yeah. And we used to arrange workshops with children and different age groups, so that we understand all their aspirations and perspective. Because of course, in such a short time, we cannot really understand everything, but what we can do is we can respect their ideas and we can try to include them as much as possible. And these were very strange stories we are getting.
Some bizarre story.
Yeah. And we used to arrange some workshops that is related to the construction techniques. So this is a workshop on the nipa palm roofing method. We didn't know about it, but around 90% housing from Myanmar, the refugee housings were made by this material. And we decided to select this because it might reflect their memories. And luckily we found that near the site as well. This plant grows on a salty stream, Nipa palm, and you can see the roofing with this material is such a tremendous technique, because the regular thatching you need to change it like every year, but this technique, it can last for 10 years depending on the technique. So we decided to select this material, and making the roof itself was a beautiful event that everyone participated in, and everyone was singing, everyone was taking pictures, and it was like a magical moment for us. And you see the left sketch is done by a craftsman during the workshop. We asked them to draw a space where they will feel that they will feel the healing there, the mental healing that we're talking about. So he started drawing these layers of spaces, and inside you see a courtyard where he can see the light and he can sit and meditate. So these had been in our subconscious all along, all these 1.5 years. And when we designed the space, I think it reflected on the output as well. And the final result is something like this. So you see the light inside the living museum. So this is exactly not a permanent museum for them, but this is a living space where people can come and this place can grow every day. Again, during the construction, every day was like a design session. They made samples and tried and rejected and tried again, and made beautiful partitions like this. And whenever everyone was exhausted, they started singing, and it was like a mental healing session during the construction. So the construction was like a very happy event for every one of us. And they made a very beautiful wall of arts. Potteries are displayed there. Of windows, they display their memories in the windows. Floor tiles, floor patterns. These were all designed by them. We just discussed the ideas that what can be done within our resource and limitations, and they came up with the drawings and solutions. And you see the floor looks like this right now. And the space is more or less like this. It keeps changing over time. And even if you go right now, you will see something different there, and some new products maybe, or some new people. And they're always coming here and having a good time. You'll probably not see any perfect workmanship there, because that was not really the intention of this project, but celebrating and healing through a creative process was the main purpose of this project, and that's why we called it Healing Through Making. And you see the gardens are growing, the spaces inside. And you see a lot of activities happening right now. All the different government officials or authorities or stakeholders from different countries, whenever they visit the camp, they learn about this memory center, and they come to know who is Rohingya. I mean, even before working on this project, probably we wouldn't believe that they could do so much, and they have such potentials. But after making this one, we had our visions change, and I think the whole world did as well. So this we will talk about some points that we generally consider during our designing any project. Like active participation of male and female members both, because we want them to learn to grow together and how to respect each other. And like we try to build trust with the community members, like even during night, we try to sit with them and we try to make them feel that it's safe to sit with us and to discuss positive things. And of course, celebrating placemaking together, that's the most crucial part of our process. Whatever we're doing, we try to not stress. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. We can do it right, but we want to have fun. Thank you.
I think we took really long.
It was so inspiring. Actually, it's the kind of place that I want to ask you. I mean, do people in the refugee camp see it as a permanent home? I mean, will it be the kind of place where people might spend 10 or 20 years? Because the kind of investment, not just in material, but just in ideas and in creativity, I mean, it gives off the sense of a place where people want to be. I mean, what is the longer term vision? And I mean,
we had this exact discussion during the construction and the design method several times, that is it being permanent for them, or what are their ideas? But we have been sure that whatever it is, it's just a good memory for them. They want to go back to their home because they had their land, their agricultural land, their cows, their home, and everything over there. Right now, within a shelter, they're residing like 20 people's or 30 people's in one shelter, and that's not human. Of course, it's a memory center that we are trying to create within this temporary realm. And you see all these materials are these are temporary, and you can, these are all modular designs, like you can shift it anywhere if you want to, really want to. But the thing is, the main issue is, what does the community want? That is the discussion. And we had several sessions with them, several discussions with them, and if this affects their choices or not. But the thing is, their home is their home. And this place is making them stronger and resilient. And they probably they were losing hope. Right now, they are just remembering their history and trying to fight back, but they're fighting back to get back to home, not to stay here.
Okay. Thanks. Well, I encourage people, members of the audience, to ask whatever question they like and to comment on both the presentations. But first, Ghassan, I wanted to ask you if you had any questions and comments.
No, I think it's wonderful. I think this is how I see actually the work of the architect, as more as a mediator, like willing to learn from the people who actually build, and making the connection between builders, community, funders, etc. And I think what they're doing is fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you so much. For Ghassan, I'd like to say one of our friends, I think you'll know him, Andrew Michel. He visited your project, and he was actually traveling many countries to see the Aga Khan Award winning projects from Boston College, and he was sharing his experience, that he was telling me one story, that the lights you put on the streets, that actually gave people the sense of security and safety. Like whenever you are walking, following them, there is something with you, and you feel safe walking in the trail. So that was very nice, and we love to see. It was a pleasure to see your presentation directly today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, please go ahead and type any questions in the chat box. But actually, I have a question for Rizvi and Khawja. What have you learned from this process? It's a very unusual project in the sense that you have all these people who have all these skills, and they contribute to creating architecture and craft and memory. And I mean, if you were given a project in the middle of a city, for example, I mean, what have you learned from the process of the refugee camp that you could apply in a very different context?
Okay, I think bringing, I mean, you know, in a refugee context, the challenges are very, very different, because in terms of creating leadership, in terms of bringing everyone together in one platform is can be very crucial in these places. But I think what we learned that in the end, you always have to, I mean, if you want to build one collective product, I think it's very crucial to somehow bring everyone together, no matter how challenging that process might seem at that point. So,
and we were working in the refugee context for like 4 to 5 years, and I was away from the main city for a long time. Whenever I got back to the city, like after this process, I really saw some layers that I didn't see before. Like we had a lot of we have a lot of communities within our cities. Some you see the shopkeepers, the rickshaw pullers, and there are a lot of informal settlements that we are currently working on actually. I see everyone is going through migration. Whether it's international or internal migration, we see that people are coming from the villages and losing their identity and whatever they had back in the village. They are coming to the city and they are coming to a new situation and trying to cope up with that. And in the process, they're creating a lot of, everyone is collectively creating a lot of mess. So you see, mental health is a big issue. Identity and culture, you can work on that. Whenever I come to the city, and we see that a lot of scopes are there to work with organizations or individually to really connect to them and really try to understand whether they should go back to village or whether they should develop in a different way. One of the last photos that we are sharing was from the city, from Dhaka. That was with the children from informal settlement. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to connect different organizations from the city right now. And we are trying to see areas where they are working, and we're trying to get involved and offer our experiences. And fortunately, many organizations are very positive. They're asking for our help, and we are being present there, even in the cities.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, if I may comment.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's very important because also in my research, I had the opportunity to talk with migrants, as I said here, immigrants living in Muharraq, and they had the feel that Muharraq had a lot of similarities with their culture because they have, their neighborhood mosque, they can walk everywhere, and it reminded them of their villages and the place where they came from. The issue remains here is I think a model of what you are saying, like to make them be part of that place, to be able to be creative there. This is still missing here. These people are not, given the rights over these spaces where they live, where they feel like they can identify easily and they can contribute. And I think it's very important to do what you're doing in the cities and in places like this, maybe here in the Gulf also, would be a great addition to the development and the efforts.
Or maybe it's something you can suggest, Hassan. I mean,
exactly.
Given that your project listens a lot.
Yeah, definitely. We should go in that direction.
Okay, so there's a question which I believe is about the refugee camp, and the question is, what is the contribution of shared Islamic belief, even in the absence of a common language?
I think, that a lot of organizations are also working stating this in mind, what the question was asked about. For example, whenever we were having discussions with about memories of Aga Khan, or about what should be going on in the camp or not, we would always discuss with the key personnels of the community, and the entire community would always suggest the imam of the mosque and the muazzins of the mosque, because in our Islamic culture we consider them as leaders, and they would always come in front and talk to us about the good practices that's been happening, or the bad practices that should not be going there. So that was very crucial for us. And also in terms of cultures, I think it helped us understanding their practices very easily.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, one of our key concerns was that we really wanted to discuss with the religious leaders and try to understand their perspective when we're talking about culture. And it is merged so closely that you cannot really separate that this is culture and this is religion. No, but their belief system, their philosophy, their practices, these are all so much merged. And I think that is important to really observe and act sensitively. I'll share just one personal experience of mine, that when I was leaving this place, few of the members, they are very religious by heart, and they had a very beautiful comment after our work was done, that if one person does so good for human being, even if someone doesn't want to verbally appreciate them, their soul appreciates them. And that was such a beautiful thing from them for me to leave the project, and it really touched me. I think these philosophies were all over the place when we were working, and we are trying to really understand their philosophies and ideas, and what they love. And what we love, and what we want to share together, the good things.
Great. So there's a comment which is actually quoting something that Rizvi, you said, everyone is going through immigration. And I wondered, Ghassan, taking it to your context, what do you think of that comment?
Yeah. Everyone, everyone meaning, I think everyone experiences some form of immigration every now and then, but in the context of Bahrain, yes, there's a big problem. And also, it's a place of exchange, right? So people here tend to also, even the Bahrainis tend to go abroad to learn, to go to university, etc. So, and I myself, I'm an immigrant here. So I think it is. Reflecting on this comfort of being abroad is always a question. It's always an important thing to look at. And during also my research, I had the opportunity to look at research done for the sense of place of immigrants and how they make themselves comfortable in the spaces where they are. And it's always of importance. I don't know if I answered your question. Did you want me to comment on some other aspect?
No, the person put it in inverted commas, so there was no pressure to answer, but I just wanted to see what you thought.
I think they liked the quote, maybe.
Yeah, when they said placement is affecting the mental health of communities, and your philosophy of listening to and involving the community is crucial to the healing and integration process. Thank you for 2 brilliant presentations. Indeed. We still have 10 minutes. So if anyone has other questions or comments, including yourselves, are you still working on the project, the refugee camp, or not? Or is it something that...
Actually, we are doing on and off. But, currently, I am working with the water and sanitation hygiene project, but mostly for the refugee communities and also the Bangladeshi communities who were affected by the influx. So the shared latrine, the shared toilet, and the sanitation facility that you saw is part of that. Actually.
And Ghassan, what's going on in Muharraq?
Well, as I said, we're trying to expand our collaboration with other institutions to make sure the new developments are in line with good approaches and the consultative approaches. We're now finishing up a series of conservation projects, and there's a big opening planned by the end of the year for a lot of sites. And this is, I think, where the projects come together. But as I said, it's also important to, I think design alone is never enough. You need to have policies that support whatever is done. You need monitoring and management systems of these places that continue and that consolidate the efforts. And this is now the moment to do that. And we're looking into a lot of these things. We have somebody who's specialized in finding operators, for example, connecting with several members of the community or members of organizations to see how to operationalize a lot of the spaces that were restored and a lot of the new places in Muharraq. So yeah, that's the next step now.
Do you think, you mentioned about kind of the institutional process. Do you think that things are developed enough that if all of the people who's worked on it for a long time, like yourself, were to leave, that things would continue without compromising the spirit of the project?
Well, the thing that what happened is that we trained a lot of juniors. We have, fortunately, a good base of young Bahrainis and people from other nationalities who understand the vision and and what was being done, and understand the importance of conserving the culture and integrating, the community. So I think at that point, if I leave or other managers of the project leave, it will be in good hands, I think, at that point. I'm not worried so much about that. But again, these are people, staff members who don't have the power. Now, the biggest fear is that the change comes from the top, if you know what I mean. If there's a new vision that comes and says, well, we don't want to do this anymore. This is the actual fear that we have right now.
Hopefully it won't happen. And do you think in both your cases, given that you worked on these projects for a long time, if you were to start a similar project elsewhere, what would you do? What would you do differently that you've learned that you didn't know 15 years ago or 5 years ago? Let's start with Ghassan.
I spoke a lot. No, so many things. So many things. I think it's when this project started, there was always a rush to get things done and always a rush to work on things. So I think if we had to do it again, I think pausing and taking the time to analyze things and do more, I would say, investigations, whether it's about the restoration process itself or with the local community and the people there. I think that would be it. And we understand a lot of things also about government procedures through the years. We know much better how it works. We know much better what can be done, what cannot be done, how much time things take. So in terms of organizing the planning of the several projects, we would have planned it in consequence, knowing how much time things take and what is acceptable to other entities and who do you have to contact and what do you have to do. So basically, that's mostly it in our case.
How about in your case?
I think it's not possible to have any other context like this ever, and we hope that it does not happen. But what I'd just like to say that whenever we do recall the process, the entire process, we recall it very dearly, very emotionally. I mean, right now when Rizvi was presenting the pictures of the constructions, I was being very emotional because, it was very organic. It all happened very organically. So I think this is something I would not like to change. But what Mr. Ghassan said, that stands true for our case as well. I mean, now we understand the dynamics of different stakeholders. So we would try to be a bit more cautious in these cases.
I agree. I mean, I think I'll try to forget what I have done so far as fast as possible, because sometimes, like working in such a context, if you have a preconceived idea in your mind, it might actually come on the way. So we try to go with an open mind, but we have some techniques to really gather the information quickly. Like Mr. Ghassan said, that communicating with the stakeholders quickly and arranging workshops with different age groups, and really looking around, like what are the clues, what are the needs, which we'll probably try to do in shorter times. But I don't know if that will be possible, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think you've been so inspiring, all three of you, and it's so nice to learn about your projects and about ways of approaching things. And I hope that many people will be inspired by your example.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you for everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.